So, we got DDoSed. Have a feeling that the video about pricing of services might have frustrated some people, and they wanted to see how far they could push the services I'm building. It probably cost them more than it cost me, but regardless, I want to talk about how they racked up over a terabyte of traffic in under 20 minutes and what it looks like to mitigate that in a serverless first stack like the one that we talk about here. It took over 2 weeks of them attacking our services at Ping, as well as Create T3 app, T3 OSS stuff, and many other open source projects in the space. But ultimately, I'll admit, they did cause a blip for the first time today. There was a few minutes where people were being disconnected because our Lambdas got rate limited by the hundreds upon hundreds of thousands of requests per minute, because that's what it takes to take down our services. So what did this look like? Let's break it down. So when we go to our Vercel usage, you'll notice something a little suspicious here. Specifically that this one random blob has done 1.43 terabytes of traffic. I have a feeling there wasn't 1.43 terabytes of actual download going on our service. Thankfully, the hundreds of IP addresses that were cycled through to do this have all been tracked and blocked by Vercel, and I am sure that further IP addresses as they're found will be blocked going forward. Last I checked, there was over 600, so they have burned over 600 static IP addresses to try and do this, which is kind of funny. On top of that, when they also, fun thing that we did, we redeployed to kill this specific URL just to make it a little harder for them to spam. So they started hitting everything else that was slightly more generic, like next image and /i. They've been posting to /i nonstop for a bit now. In just today, 4.8 million invocations, which is pretty absurd. And here, over 3/4 of them errored, which is annoying. Thankfully, our stuff errors pretty quick, so even our usage here isn't outside of the basic pro tier on Vercel. So it's not going to cost us any money. But as we scroll down here, the throttles, this is what sucked. We can also see here as we scroll down a bit further that they hit our edge services a lot, not an absurd amount. In fact, if we go to the T3 OSS usage, you'll see many more edge invocations because they originally started trying to target the edge that we had for roundestmon here. And also fast around, they went at pretty hard. But since both of those projects are using the rate limiting package that Upstash created, none of these were able to really damage our traffic. They spiked our average CPU times a little bit during one of the attacks, but generally hasn't been a big deal. You can see the invocations, though. They are trying really hard to abuse our services, and when they do that, they just get rate limited, especially on Chirp, which they seem to be spamming a lot, and the Edge middleware is keeping that from being successful. So yeah, Chirp, the application I built for the tutorial a few weeks ago, has held up to this absolute insanity, which is pretty crazy to see. The reason I usually use the rate limiter by Upstash isn't to prevent requests fetching data. It's very specifically to prevent posting to my database, to spam applications I've built, stuff like that. It's not to limit the amount of traffic to my services. It's to limit the amount of spam being posted and stored within my services. And it has been incredibly effective for that here. I am now considering using the same tech to enforce request blocking on other services to limit the amount of bandwidth and time spent doing invocations. Theoretically, you could throw an edge or the Upstash rate limiter on your edge middleware for all requests and have your own mini Cloudflare style DOS or DDoS protection. But I hadn't needed it yet. But that's what the next move would be at this point if we cared enough to do anything. But generally, we've held up from the traffic great. T3 OSS is a free sponsored open source project, so we don't have to worry about any billing there. The emails are actually kind of cute because they tell us when we're over limits, but they say at the bottom, by the way, you're sponsored, so you don't have to worry about this, but if it keeps going, we might have to chat, which has been really nice of them. And as for the stuff on Ping, this wouldn't have been the funnest bill, that's for sure, but thankfully, we've been working with Vercel. They're going to cover any overages that we've had due to the DDoS, and we're working with them to get as many of these people banned as possible. Generally, there isn't much you can do with this level of focused attack. It seems like they have a botnet at this point. There's no way they could be attacking with this many different IP addresses otherwise. So yeah, that's the state of things. It's not going to cost me too much, thankfully. And yeah, huge shout out to both Vercel and Upstash for handling this so well. It's been incredible to see the response from the core teams at those companies and how hard they've worked to make it so our services don't go down. And despite the literal terabytes per second or per minute of traffic that they've been spamming our services with, we were able to hold up strong. And we only had a small blip today after 2 weeks of spam. And that blip was exclusively because of the Lambda concurrent invocation limit. So if we can move those things over to Edge and rate limit them on Edge, that one last problem that caused our outage today will go away. You can bet your butt we're going to fix that tonight. So yeah, as annoying as it can be to get DDoSed, this is the benefit of going all in on serverless technologies like what we've built. It is effectively impossible to take down our services outside of weird small edge cases like that. And after a little bit of fixing, we'll be strong up and running. It might cost a bit, but it will cost the people attacking us way more. So that's where things are at. I'm pretty pumped. And going forward, I will definitely be staying on serverless because holy hell, if we had actual servers that were running during this, we'd be dead. We'd be out on the street, entirely broke. This is not sustainable if you're running servers. So yeah, I have a video here about the pricing of these servers if you want to learn more about that, because there's a reason I'm using them and the price is not a reason to not. So check that out if you haven't.